You're a spiritual being in physical form, a dichotomy of light and dark, where energy equals mass on a journey designed to fulfill our personal legend and purpose, to use humanity throughout, to amplify and transcend, tame the ego, raise the humanity. That's a signpost up ahead. Your next stop, the High Vibe Zone. Hey y'all, hey, what's up? LinkedIn, YouTube, another High Vibe Zone. It is April 20th. I thought the 20th was tomorrow. I'm about a day behind. And I am so excited. I have an amazing guest with me today. I'll share a little bit more when he comes on, but I met him through mutual friends. And in fact, he did some work for Humanity Power. He captured some amazing photos for Humanity Power. But there was something about him that stood out when I first met him. Very intuitive and just really connecting. So there's no question that he has this like photography eye. But I want to know, like, what is it like to see the world through different lenses? So my guest with me today is super awesome. We're going to have a great conversation here in the High Vibe Zone. We're just going to chill because it's all high vibe. So without further ado, I'm going to bring my amazing guest on. John, hello.
How are you?
I'm doing well. And how are you?
I'm doing well. I'm excited to chat.
Yeah, this is going to be good. We were talking a little bit backstage and I was like, no, I'm going to save this for the High Vibe Zone. But like,
yeah, I was like, what should I expect?
Well, I mean, you know, just a conversation. This is us talking. We've met twice now. Our first time was a lot more extensive because you were doing a photo shoot.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then we ran into each other in a coffee shop, which was really quick.
Randomly. Yeah.
Yeah.
I had a feeling too, because I thought I was going to run into the crew because I knew you were in town. I think they mentioned it.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Camp Waffle, right?
I was in the coffee shop and I started texting Maria. I was like, let me see what they're up to. And then you all walked in. It was funny.
Then we appeared.
Yeah. 30
nice.
seconds.
Yeah. Well, okay. So a little background for everyone that's watching. So you are a photographer, but that's not all you do. Is that correct?
That's correct. Yes. That's the passion.
Okay.
Photojournalism, writing and photography.
And how long have you been in photography?
Let's see. I would say probably 14, 15 years now.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I started with music journalism. I was a journalist for a website, Behind the Hype. No longer functioning really anymore. It's kind of in static mode now. But essentially, I started going to, in the music industry, when you are doing press photography, or journalism, you typically get 2 passes and 1 photographer's pass, or wristbands, or lanyards, or whatever it is. Oh. So typically, my photographers would flake on the day up. It's happened like 5 or 6 times in a row. Oh. Eventually, I just borrowed a friend of mine's camera. She was like, "Yeah, I never used it." I was like, "All right, cool." Took it, shot it, fell in love with it, wrote a story, and edited the pictures to learn the whole process. And then from then on, it kind of went from there. I mean, everyone's a cell phone photographer, but then I think I took it to another level. It's a lot more punishing. It's a lot easier to edit on a phone, surprisingly. So working with that and just moving my way up and just falling in love with it. And I've always been a storyteller, in some form, or in my head anyway. And kind of moving on from that, it kind of evolved with, my love of nature. On both my family sides, nature is really important, both in Ghana, and then my mom's from East Texas. So, grew up every summer. I was in Southern California 9 months, hanging with my friends and going to school. And then, 2-3 days after summertime hit, I'd be out on a farm in East Texas. So being out there in the dirt, picking, black-eyed peas and picking, all sorts of different, we had everything. We had raspberries, we had blackberries, watermelon, everything. We had all sorts of animals. We had a big family reunion on Labor Day weekend. So just kind of being a part of that and getting all these visuals and all this nature together and family, I think that pushed it a lot. And yeah, so it's always been really important, I think, to keep my eyes open and try and tell some kind of story, keep it moving in some form, try to be positive if I can. So,
Yeah, that's amazing. You touched a little bit on this, but I would love to know a little bit more about how you grew up. So you mentioned Ghana, and you also mentioned Texas.
yeah.
So where did the two merge?
So I grew up in Southern California,
Okay.
and my parents met in California, and then they moved from I think they were living in, I don't remember exactly. It's basically Inland Empire area, and they moved a little bit further west to Ventura County. I grew up in a little town called Moore Park.
Hmm.
So they both lived there, and then my parents split sometime in the mid '90s. I want to say right before high school. So my mom was in Texas, and I was still going out every summer. Regardless, I was going every summer, even when they were together still. And so that was kind of like my fostering area was Southern California, not too far from, about 45 minutes from LA, half an hour from the beaches, Malibu, and all that kind of stuff. So growing up really close to that, a lot of
Nice.
canvases. Yeah.
Nice.
And
And
Ghana, sorry. Oh, and as far as Ghana was my really first memory. So when I think I was maybe 4 at the time, my parents took me over there
hmm,
for a family trip to see. My dad went to go see family, and that was the first. I still remember very vivid memories of everything that I saw. So I didn't grow up there, but that was still and still is a very prominent part as far as visuals and memory and even drive.
hmm.
Seeing a lot of different culture that I don't see as much of here. So.
What do you recall from that experience? Like when you think of Ghana and especially your first time?
Oh, well, so I think we were in Accra, which is the capital.
Hmm.
It's like a coastal city. It's beautiful. And so we were walking the streets, and my mom, I remember we were walking to go get my mom's hair done, I think. And
Hmm.
so we were in a little area, and oh no, sorry, this is not Accra. This wasn't the capital. This is Kumasi. This is my dad's hometown. This is the cultural capital, Ashanti tribe. My father's Ashanti tribe, so am I. But this is in Kumasi, the cultural capital. And we were at a salon, and there's a bunch of kids playing,
Hmm.
and I remember this was Kumasi because there was kind of like there's several, women are very prominent in power there. It's definitely culturally, but in several ways too. Um, but in the Ashanti culture, there's the Queen Mother essentially, and there was uh, someone who is essentially who works with the Queen Mother and was hanging out with a bunch of these kids and kind of taking care of them. And I wanted to run off with the kids, and my mom got scared, and then she consoles my mother, and this is the story my mom tells. She consoles my mother and says, "Don't worry about it. I promise you, nothing will happen to him." And so I go on this adventure, and I come back, and I tell my mom. Apparently, I saw all these crazy things and colors, and tapestries. Kente cloth is from Ghana, so
Yeah.
saw tons of that, and fell in love with the tapestries of that, and the colors and vividness and the sounds. Apparently, I went by a butcher shop and saw a goat get its head cut off, so that was drama. Yeah,
Yeah.
so exactly. So she was terrified, of course. Yeah, but I mean, it was just like so doing that, just seeing all sorts of you know different things that you don't normally, I guess, run into in Southern California, especially. So that was a very very wild memory, and I've been back. I think I went back in 2014, I believe I went. Yeah, 2014 I went, and just kind of getting the memories rushing back to you. And there's something that connects you to. I don't know. Have you been to Africa?
I have not been to Africa yet.
You got to talk, definitely.
Yeah, yeah.
I got there, and you're walking through something that's so culturally important to you and that you're blood bound by, and something kind of it hits you. It's something
Mm,
physically affects you. I remember it felt like I described it in a journal. It felt like you're walking through a forest, and the sun is hitting you through different angles, and your shadow is behind you, and it kind of felt like if your own shadow could like reach out and touch you on the shoulder. It's
mhm.
something very familiar, but also very ethereal at the same time. It was very, yeah, very mystical, very interesting. So no experience quite like that. So I'm still very much drawn to going, back as often as possible. COVID made that hard, but
Yeah.
hopefully I'll be back there soon. Yeah, that's still a heavy memory from when I started, first memories, and even now. So
Wow. I have heard that comparison. In fact, not through anyone that I know, but when I was watching High on the Hog, which is that Netflix series,
yeah,
um, Stephen was talking about that, where there was something. about just being in Africa. And so I have an auntie that's from Nigeria, so I know about the goat situation.
Right.
And I have a few people that from West Africa, from Ghana, and we talk and we connect through that way. But my husband's the only person that's been to Africa. He's not African or doesn't have any African roots, but he went to Ethiopia.
Okay.
And he's been telling me, he's like, you need to go. You need to go. And so
Yeah.
soon, I know that it will
Right.
happen soon. So I'll hit you up for sure. Because that's,
Yeah.
I've heard that before. And I think there's something, when you look at everything as energy, and I want to kind of go into how you lens or see the world when you think of everything as energy. When you get to a place of origin, you can't but help feeling something magical or something there. So
Right.
I love that. Okay, I wanted to showcase some of your photos if you don't mind.
Yes. Yeah. That's fine.
Okay.
I'm curious which one you said you found and you wanted to discuss.
Yes. So I went to your site.
Okay.
I encourage everyone that's watching to check it out. I'm gonna go ahead and pull this up. Let me see if I can share a. Here we go. Share a tab. Here we are. All right. Can you see this? Is this you?
Yes, that is me.
All right. So, I mean, there's so many stories in these photos
There's
that
so
I can
many.
tell. Like,
Yeah.
and as I was going through these, I was like, wow, these are so beautiful. And, I had one that stood out to me and I wanted to ask you about it. It's
Sure.
this one.
Oh man, one of my favorites. Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay. 'Cause it,
Three visions. I call this one.
wow. Okay. Can you talk to me about this?
Okay, so this is in Los Angeles. I can't remember the year. I'd have to look. This is in Los Angeles. I'm on the Santa Monica Pier,
Hmm.
and I am looking east towards like the South Bay, essentially, like San
Mhm.
Pedro, that area, PV, that area. And I'm walking around just in LA. Every walk is walking around, and I always am talking about one of the reasons why I love LA is because there's certain places you can go to have cultural enclaves of all sorts. You can go hang out in Irish pubs with real Irishmen. If you want to go to Little Tokyo, you can hang out in Little Tokyo. You can go to Little Ethiopia and so on and so forth. But
Yeah.
there's also the melting pot actual aspects. One of them being Santa Monica Pier especially. Every
Yeah.
tourist goes there, every walk goes there. So I'm there one night, it's kind of like a colder night, a storm starting to roll in, and these three nuns are sitting on this bench,
Hmm.
and they're sitting quiet, not talking, and they're looking off into the distance. And straight ahead of them, I don't know if you can see it here on this stream, but in this picture, they're looking straight ahead, and on the horizon, there are three small lights, like lined up, almost exactly spaced how they are. They're looking dead on that.
What?
And I didn't even see it at first until I actually looked at the picture. I didn't realize I'd taken it, but if you look close, there are
Oh,
three little
yeah.
little lights on the horizon that they're looking. I think it's a but yeah, right there.
Yep.
Yeah,
Yep.
yeah, yeah. So they're looking at these three lights, and I was like, wow, this is just mystic. So it's just one of those nights where you never know who you're taking photos of. And there's a photo I took that was cool, kind of similar to this. It's just an interesting picture where there's a guy holding his daughter on some gym bars.
Hmm.
Uh, I'm getting all these messages after posting the picture, on Instagram years ago at the time, and everyone's like, "Do you know who that is?" And I'm like, "No." They're like, "It's I can't remember his first name, but he's an MMA fighter. Last name Mr. Fabrizi, and he's on the
Oh,
bars with his daughter. And apparently, he's like this super mega star, and he had his little baby daughter on the bars, and it was this whole thing. And I
what?
thought it was so cool. So you just never know. He was having this moment that was totally just off the record, him just living his life that I didn't even realize.
That
Such
is amazing.
beautiful moments have happened, and this one is just so beautiful and haunting at the same time.
Yeah.
Anytime I look at this, Queens of the Stone Age comes on. So I don't know why.
Mm,
It's always what comes on to me.
wow.
I sat by the ocean. There's so many songs that connect me to this one. So it's beautiful.
Wow. Yeah, that one. I mean, I was like looking through them and I was like, I want to know the story behind this
Yeah,
one. So
that's
thank
crazy.
you.
Of course.
Um, are there any other, let me just, are there any other ones that like, I mean, these are just
Oh yeah. There's so many.
amazing.
So many, yeah, Lake Tahoe. Yeah, a good friend of mine.
You
That's it.
just capture.
Yeah, I've been Chuck D. Yeah, my cousin was film. He's a director, and he was
Yeah.
filming this movie called Kick in the Door, talking. It
Hmm.
was a hip hop documentary, and we were interviewing him at a house. And so I was just taking pictures on scene while they were getting the set dressed. We just sat and talked about moms, the importance of moms. We were shooting on Mother's Day, and we were about to go off to go hang out with our moms. It was
Wow.
very cool. And he's like, "Hey," I'm like, "Hey, can I get a portrait?" It was right after the conversation. So Chuck
Wow.
D, a legend, of course, public
Yeah.
figure. So it's cool.
Wow. I mean, again, the way that you capture is so my daughter would love this. She loves the moon, anything moon,
Oh yes.
loves that.
I have that one hanging in my bathroom actually.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, it's beautiful.
That's amazing.
That's in Ghana right there. Yeah,
Wow.
outside Cocoon National Forest, which you must do, even if you're
Okay.
afraid of heights, you must do it.
I can do the forest. I went to Costa Rica once, so I
Okay,
was okay with that.
cool. Oh, that one's cool. This is New York. That on the bottom left, that big patch, that's Central Park in New York.
Oh
That's
wow.
why
So
it's so
right
dark.
here.
On the left there.
Wow. Yeah. These are just amazing.
Oh yeah, I've been fortunate to take some great work all over the place. Everything you're scrolling through is all over the world or all over the country.
That is so fascinating. So I'd like to go through, okay, how, when you have an eye like that, do you see the world differently, or do you find that you might see the world differently than what maybe you hear or hear from others? Like, do you have a different perspective?
It seems like it, yeah. I think to me, I think just because of it's two things that I think have formulated a lot of my perspective. Number one is obviously traveling a lot.
Hmm.
Number two is being around my mom and grandmother a lot growing up. Just so many life lessons and just these aha moments in the summertime, sitting around talking about things and asking questions as a kid. But that just them encouraging me to travel and just be a kind person and be open to hearing everything. And just be willing to love as often as you can. Ashanti proverb is, one of ours is, do as much as you can as often as you can. So I try to travel with that as well. And, I like to learn about new cultures because I want everyone to celebrate their cultures. I think it'll make the world more peaceful in general.
Yeah.
Some of the, some people who may not have the most open-minded perspectives, who battle about us trying to strive for our cultures or our backgrounds, for instance, or our histories, for instance, um, don't know or
Hmm.
haven't been to or haven't studied at all the countries that they came from. I'm
Right.
like, look, that's great. You're from Iceland. That's great. I've been there. Here's pictures of it. Let's talk about what I saw and what you saw and where's your family from. And oh, that's interesting. And then you start to discover and let's share food. Here's what I ate. Let's share and I'm make them some jollof rice. Something like that. So it's kind of interesting. I've been to Cuba as well. That's still 6 month span where Obama let us get over there, thankfully.
Hmm.
So I went over there with a journalist visa and I had to sign paperwork saying, hey, by the way, we might check all your work, but if you let us check all your stuff and you sign up this way, you can return. I said, great, I want to someday. I went there and just had a crazy discovery, and even just what is it? The idea of you hear stories about a place, good stories or bad stories, but I'm always a person. I like to experience that in person because
Right.
there's so much to learn, and I'm typically wrong, good or bad.
Hmm.
To be honest, like I went to Cuba and heard some people were saying things good and bad, but it was just its own. Everything is its own unique experience. But Cuba was such a beautiful, unique experience. But there were very strong, rough, history that you could see and you can feel and you heard about. You can see it in the scars in people, and it's wild. But one of the most beautiful places, one of the most friendly and like forward places I've ever been. Man, some of the artists out there are crazy. Like you think I'm good. These people they're off the hook out there, man. The Cubans
Wow.
are incredible people, man. It's great. So just getting perspective through that has really changed me a lot because you really learn like we're all going through the same things. We're all trying to get up, go to work. We all want to pursue our passions, but try to make the time to do that. We're all trying to, love our families and our friends and our partners and continue on that journey and do the best we can, when we can. I think really everyone's trying to follow that mantra, really. And so discovering that and just trying to be open. Hey, people might not interact with you in a way that you're comfortable with, but at the same time, if you're open to it and you're open to customs, every time I travel, I think of the Dune. I think of the scene in Dune where any million versions of it. The scene in Dune where I think it's Paul Atreides, he walks into the temple and he spits on the floor. Now, normally anywhere else, it's like you would get beat up for like, you spit on my floor, what are you doing? But to them, it's like, oh, we appreciate you giving some of your water. You know what I mean? As extreme an example that is, it's like, I love sci-fi. So I use these examples like, look,
Oh my God.
you got to be open to whatever, because you got to look at the customs and be like, and it's like in the real world, of course, like peace signs, depending on which way you throw it, might mean something different.
Right.
Little things like that. Just kind of understanding like how everybody works and trying to meet people on common ground and be like, hey, look, that's awesome. I want to know how you are. If you're open to it. I happen to be fortunate enough to be a person that when I'm talking to somebody, they typically want to talk and start telling me about them, and unprompted, and it's great. I think it's great. I love that happens. I think it's a great way to live and a great way to be there for people and try and learn to listen more, and give advice when asked, and also just gain a collective knowledge of the world. So traveling is definitely, perspective wise, just flipped everything for me. It's beautiful.
That is an amazing way to look at the world. And I think you touched on some very key points of, how you show up. It sounds like when you show up in spaces, there is no room for judgment in where you're going. You're just like, I'm here, and you experience, you fully experience and you emerge. And from that experience, you get these stories, and it's through storytelling that really does give a broader perspective on what's happening in the world. So it's like it starts to open the heart. And a couple of things that came up when you were talking is like there's this oh my gosh, there's like so many things I want to touch on that you just said. Okay, where do I go with this? So let me start with the first thing that I wanted to say. Sure. When you look at your photos, or when you look at the things that you've captured, do you happen to see more similarities than differences in the thread of what you're doing?
That's hard to. In what similarities between, I guess, what topic?
Do you see that there's a connectedness more than a divisiveness in the things you're?
Absolutely. I mean, the number one thing is there is and I can't. Maybe this is the I. Maybe this is what people call the I, but there is, you kind of are, when you start holding a camera and you take it with you, another sci-fi reference, I always say, if you want to, get good at photography, I'm self-taught. If you want to get good photography, carry around your camera like you would a lightsaber. You should be as proud of it and carry around with it and learn to be as skilled with it. And you carry around with you all the time, and you learn and you shoot with it. So for me, the interconnectedness with that is just walking the streets and feeling that same vibe, putting on some good music, and you start to see very particular angles. A scene or an angle or something, or a group of people or something in nature captures you in a particular way, and you stop and you shoot it. And I think that's, people say, oh, it's part of the, Fibonacci sequence and the golden, the golden equation and all that. So this kind of like this, it's a tunnel vision feeling where you feel like I should be here making this picture. And the reason why I say that specifically is because a lot of times I'll have my camera on me and not take a picture, because being a photographer has also taught me when it's time to just sit back and enjoy the actual scene. You see what I'm saying? And to not shoot it, because you realize I'm not going to get the photo, what I'm seeing, what I'm experiencing, what I'm taking in. I don't think I'm going to be able to capture it in this short little time frame. I kind of want to just enjoy it for now.
Wow. Okay. We need to talk about that.
Yes.
Because what you just touched on was like ultimate discernment around presence. And that is big because of all of these distractions that we have going on. When do you know to be still and capture that moment? I just want to say, Felicia, hey girl, hey, welcome to the High Vibe Zone. Felicia's awesome.
Felicia, I have Hawaii pictures I will have to share.
Oh,
I gotta update my website. I've got Hawaii photos.
Talk to Felicia. She is amazing. But as you were talking about them, specifically what came through when you were talking about like, there's moments when you just know not like, I'm not going to be able to capture this in its majesty. Something that brought me to was birth.
Hmm.
And I'm not sure if you've ever filmed or captured birth, but I've never had my birth captured on film. But there are moments in that where it's like there's nothing that can be captured in this moment other than just letting it flow. And then there are times where I've seen birth photos where the baby is just born and it captures just everything in that space.
Right.
And it's just like being able to know when that moment of presence is needed, and then when to honor
Mhm.
what exactly is happening.
Yes, I haven't had the opportunity. Done plenty of maternity photos. Just did some a couple of weeks ago with a great friend of mine. Actually, I should link y'all. My friend Frankie, she's wonderful.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, but in my head, I want to shoot the entire spectrum given the opportunity. So from birth to everything.
Mm,
There have been situations. I know friends of mine who are like, yeah, I've shot birth photos, and I've had families asked, friends have been asked to shoot funerals or open caskets,
yeah.
or be war photographers. And when I was in my 20s, I really thought about being a war photographer. Because I'm like, look, I kind of like I have my own perspectives. I don't know if I want to. I'm not sure if I want to sign up soldier wise. I'm not sure if that's for me, but I want to go in there and tell the stories of the people
Mm,
who are out there in the field doing this for real. So that was even now. It's like if one of the networks calls me up, or if I had the opportunity, I'd go overseas right now. That'd be beautiful. If I could help in some way, it's going to be helpful. Telling some kind of story or assisting in some way was helpful. I'd love to do that. But I haven't. But for me, as you talked about, knowing when to come in and come out, as far as being present with people, that's so important in photojournalism, or just street photography, or any type of photography where there's humans involved, or even just living creatures that can detect you.
right.
Whether it's if you're shooting with deer or any wildlife or anything, or a butterfly, it's like you got to be aware of their presence to you.
Yeah.
Um, you see the pictures of the Nat Geo guys with the crazy camo suits and the ink
Yeah.
lenses. It's like I would do that, but it's like also when you are in a quiet
Mm,
place and you're just trying to capture a scene, a coffee shop, or just on the streets, and you want to capture something, respectfully. It's nothing, nothing world star going on. Just some regular life stuff. It's just a
yeah.
beautiful scene. You want to be able to quietly and respectfully capture that, but also know when it's appropriate or not. I'm like,
Hmm.
I don't think I could cut it as a paparazzi, because I would want to sit and talk too much and then have a 10-minute conversation, and at the end say, hey, do you mind if I just get one just quick shot? That's not even going to sell it, actually. Just the conversation was so great. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think there's definitely something important to to knowing that connection. No hate on the people who videotape concerts. I will say, as I've been a concert photographer forever.
Yeah.
I forever was on the stance that filming concerts on your cell phone, just enjoy it.
Yeah.
Maybe film one song, film your second favorite song is a good rule of thumb. Save your favorite song, just put your phone down and enjoy it. And before the pandemic, I was like, you're never going to watch these concerts again. I bet you everybody went back and watched those concert videos again. And I was like, touche,
Yeah.
touche. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? So it's interesting how that presence, how it was so flipped, and
Mm,
how the world can flip in that way, how the norms and how we interact and what we enjoy and how we consume media. It's interesting
right.
how things have flipped around.
Right. It's this consumption versus the experience of something.
Exactly.
It's like you're getting your calories, but you're not getting the nutrition from it.
Hmm.
And I think as I'm listening to you, just this, um, I'm a baby photographer. Like I got the eye of someone else's eye. Like I can say like, oh, you got something there.
Okay.
But like, when I think of the way that you've been talking, there's so much substance in the experience that you're having that connects you and allows you to navigate and communicate, almost tap into the universal language of the world. You do that through not only the photography that you have, but you do it also through the experiences that you allow come to you, and you know how to like just honor them, like just straight up. Like I go back to my experience with you in the when we did the shoot for the
Yeah.
humanity power. Like you took each individual and you were like, you right there, you right there, you right there, and it fit each person's like personality and style, and you captured their humanity in that moment. And it was like, to be able to do that, you have to have been through some things, learned a few things, um, been through some more things.
Yeah.
And then I also want to say your ego has to be very much in check with a lot of this.
I mean, I'm human. You know what I mean? First
Yeah.
of all, I appreciate what you just said. I mean, as far as ego, I mean, that's a constant struggle.
Mm,
I think for everybody, of course, but for me, it's just really taking the time to truly try and work on myself. And everybody out there, if you haven't tried therapy, it's off the hook. You should try it if you're not doing it already. As often as you feel like you can, for sure.
yeah.
Whatever it takes. But for me, it's like just so many different ways. Being able to uh, work on myself as a person, going through so many different life experiences, good and bad, definitely shows you. I think that day I sat back and I remember thinking, let me just listen to
Mm,
what everybody's saying and kind of hear the energy before I shoot anything. I remember sitting there when I was getting my gear prepped in the side room. And I can just see you were being very just like energetic. I was like, okay, well, she's running the show. She's doing this. She's bringing this, this is a true heart. This is great. I mean, she's gonna lead this. This is easy. And then just kind of noticing how people were reacting to you, how the interpersonality was happening, how all the intersectionality was happening across the table. So just trying to pull that out, and then because there was a whole spectrum, I think, of energy levels, and plus it's like when you've never shot with somebody before. Even I'm nervous. I'm nervous to get it right, and just as they're nervous to not make a wild face or something like that. But I wanted to try and sit with everybody for a second and really say, all right, is this the right fit? And everything just fit in the right places. And
yeah.
everybody they just seemed to vibe. I was very happy with how open everybody was and how kind everybody was, and honestly, it made it easy. So it was mostly them. I just try and Bruce Lee it. I just try and guide that water. You know what I mean? So
Be water, my friend.
that's it, man. Yeah.
All right, we got a question for you here. So, wow, I love this perspective, especially as a creative person. How do we know when to gather inspiration inward versus outward?
Good question. Um, Inward versus outward. I would say it depends. As far as I feel like drawing on inward experiences that you've made it through,
Hmm.
or that you've enjoyed, good or bad. And when you're down or you're feeling, writer's block or whatever creative block you're feeling, looking back on what I've made it through already, and how fortunate of situations that I've been in, and what stories do I want to tell? Like really looking inside and like, what have I been through? What have I done? And how am I feeling about everything? And so pushing on that. So I typically, me personally, it's when I'm not feeling sure, or trying to push through stuff, and creating is getting difficult. That's the inward part. And then as far as outward perspective, and inspiration, just honestly, sometimes just driving to work, or
Mm,
going to pick up some food, or going on a walk, that will inspire me. Like right now, it's spring, and in Austin, we've got the bluebonnets. So me knowing that in the springtime that happens, I'm like, it may be hot, but I'm going to go for a walk because I know that I'm going to be inspired. And I know that, I was just introduced to mountain laurels by my friend Frankie and her husband Nico, actually.
yes.
Uh, and so we're standing, I'm shooting under a tree, and I'm smelling what smells like like runts or nerds or something like that, candy
Yeah.
essentially. I'm
Yeah.
like, what is this? These beautiful purple flowers. Purple is my favorite color. And I'm smelling this, and I'm like, this is that outward. It kind of pepped me up in the shoot. I was already pepped already, but it kind of just added to that experience. So that inspiration outward, that I think kind of occurs more spontaneously.
Yeah.
And you draw on that as it happens. And I think that kind of draws on back to what we were talking about, of knowing when to just sit back and enjoy the moment. And because sometimes if you have a camera up or you're trying to paint or do whatever, or you're going to miss some of the most important moments that are going to inspire you to make even better work later. I mean, you could just do both, I guess, and set up a tripod or set up a GoPro, whatever you want to do for inspiration later. That's the best option. But I think it goes back to that. So hopefully that answers your question.
Awesome. Awesome. We got a couple more. You ready for a couple more questions? All right. Felicia, how do you prepare yourself for a photo session?
Let's see, photo session. So we'll assume that this is for with obviously with people involved, or like a concert or event. For me, let's say it's an event it's a concert. I'll sit and I'll listen to it. Honestly, it always starts with music. That's number one. Big music guy. I get my 80,000 minutes or hours or whatever it was on my Spotify account every year.
Nice.
I'm a crazy music fan. I have tons of playlists of every genre. So typically if it's a band or a concert or a music festival, for instance, I make a playlist of all the artists who I'm intending on shooting. So I can kind of get my head in the space. I know what songs I'm going to enjoy, what songs, again, to kind of be connected. I want to sit and enjoy 30 seconds of this song because it's going to be a good part. Also, it's a good time to switch my lenses or whatever. So just kind of thinking my way through that first 15 minutes. In concert photography, you get the first 3 songs typically or first 15 minutes of a set if it's a long intro for some bands. If you're watching Mars Volta, it might be half an hour for a song. So you're in there for the first 15 minutes. So you're kind of thinking through how that 15 minutes is going to go. So that's with that. As far as with people, I just kind of think about, I don't do a lot of shoots with people who are strangers typically. Typically they're friends of mine or people that I know are friends of friends, like in our situation when I met y'all. And so typically I can, again, with music, it's like if it's going to be for an engagement shoot or just someone needs new headshots or whatever, I'm kind of thinking of what their personality is, what songs inspire me. So when I'm driving to the shoot, I'm thinking or I'm packing my gear, or even afterwards in the editing process, I'm listening to certain music that's kind of vibing me up with that person. And it makes the process easier. So beforehand, that music kind of pipes me up a little bit, I suppose. And then I talk to them too. What I've done lately is if I'm working with somebody, say, hey, if you just to feel more comfortable, if you have a Spotify account or whatever, a playlist, send me a playlist of what you want to listen to. I live by keeping my little Bose portable speaker. I travel everywhere with that thing. So I take that with me everywhere so we can just, sync up on the phone and let's just play some music and people loosen up and they're dancing, having a good time, or smiling, just feeling loose, whatever. Or they want to say, hey, would you play something? And I'll play something that kind of fits the mood. If they're trying to get serious or you have a stalwart feel or, just have that strength or whatever we're trying to shoot. I think that helps a lot. So I think as far as preparation, that's big for me. Other than that, it's really just, I don't do too much, but maybe dust off the front of my lens and double check my battery and card is in the camera before I leave the house.
Nice.
So, yeah, good question.
Awesome. And we've got one more here. So listening to this has been the best part of my day. Oh, Maria. Would love to hear your perspective on writing as a creative aspect when you have so many ideas to write about, but don't know where to start and feel overwhelmed. It's a great question.
Okay. Very good. Very good question or statement. I guess it's funny enough, it's tied to music. So on my website, on my blog, I have several long form stories. And for all those stories, I try to, after I've already gotten back from a trip, I try to look at all the pictures that I've taken and try and think of the memories that I had on the trip or the notes that I've taken. And I build a playlist off of that. And I have, several things in the works that are kind of based around that. Like I love that concept. I miss the concept of old 90s movies with great soundtracks, like The Bodyguard. Like nothing's really hit like The Bodyguard,
Right?
So I wish I could take that in like a photography or in a literary sense again, soundtracks to things.
Yeah.
So I think when it comes to being creative, it's kind of like structuring, in my mind, it's structured by songs, or I might name my articles after different songs or whatever. And that kind of just gets sometimes the lyrics in a song may inspire me. So my first works when I was in high school, when I started my first book, which I've taken apart and piecemealed and I'm turning into other creative writing now, sci-fi stuff. Every chapter is named after a song. For instance, one is I can't remember who sing. I don't know why I'm blanking on it now. But of course, the first song is called "Moon Dance." I
Hmm.
want it. I think there's a Sinatra version of it, but I can't remember who sang the original version. But it's like a really jazzy, beautiful song, and it's because the first scene takes place on the moon. Sci-fi, but it kind of. I wanted to. I love the idea of in my head. I want to play out my creative. I'm like, where can I take this? If this
Yeah.
were a movie, how would I want this to start? I started like maybe I want to go back to the old school of having a big band intro being the thing where you
Mm.
tie it into the scene. You have a big band playing a song, and then the camera zoom into this big band playing in this sci-fi opera hall kind of. Let's say Fifth Element kind of idea,
Yes.
and then the movie starts. So in my head, that's kind of where creatively writing goes for me. I try to visualize or listen to every single aspect of it. So that helps me kind of, if I don't already just know where to go, because most times I can sit, if I have an idea and I want to write a part, I kind of have a general idea of where I want to go with the chapter, or with the character, or with the conversation. I just write. Let's do it.
Nice.
I keep it all in the noggin most times.
Hmm.
I wouldn't say I'm Lil Wayne level of keeping it all on the top of my head, but I would say that is a blessing for me. Is a lot of things will just come to me. Like if I want to go away, the ideas will kind of just fill itself out. I'm like, hey, I want to go. If I'm at a diverging path, let me just try both things out, and I'll write 5 pages in each direction and see where I want to go, and then scrap which ones I don't want, or combine them, and so on and so forth. So hopefully that's helpful for you. Good question.
I love this so much. And okay, so there's two other things I want to touch on, and,
Yes.
and we can start to wrap up here. But
No, let's do it.
you mentioned sci-fi, so I am definitely a sci-fi person as well.
Yes.
Star Trek,
Yep.
Starship Trooper. Like, I mean, I like what's that one with the, oh gosh, I can't even think of the name. It's like with the worm, and it's like a B level. It's like the
Tremors.
Tremors.
Oh, they made like 7 of those. It was like them and
Oh my
Land Before
gosh.
Time. Like
And I
7.
love how each one kind of is like worse.
Yeah,
But
they're all wild.
so I love like the B level sci-fi, but also very much into Star Trek. You mentioned, the lightsaber in terms of Star Wars. You
Yep.
have, you know, which one are like? Do you have both? Do you like
Which
them all?
universe?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Where are you?
I would say so as far as the Star Wars versus Star Trek situation, I think that uh, with Star Trek, you get the opportunity to have a lot more interpersonal conversations over a long period of time. So we'll just use Next Generation as an example.
Yep.
You get to be with these characters for so long, and you get to really, know them and love them, which is great.
Yeah.
But then with Star Wars, it's like I feel like the arcs are a little bit shorter. There are some characters who are the mainstays, but when you encapsulate uh, a whole group of people on one ship. Star Wars only took place on the Millennium Falcon, and they just went from place to place for 3 movies. It'd be a completely different thing. You see what I'm
Right.
saying? So it's like there's a much wider story that they're trying to tell with Star Wars. So I love them both for different reasons.
Right.
I think the wider story of Star Wars is a beautiful one. It's just a man who's just going through life, and things just get wilder and wilder, and the things he's
Right.
part of, and his family legacy, and all the things that repercussions. But then with Star Trek, it's really about discovery of not just planets, but trying to help people, but also it is about conflicts, both interpersonal, internal, but between intergalactic empires. So it's so there's all these different things I think you can draw from both. As far as other things that I like sci-fi was, I've taken from so many different movies, ones that are philosophical sci-fi, things like Sunshine,
Yeah.
which is a great indie film with a lot of greats in it. I think it was somewhat indie, either that or just underpraised. Things like Dark City, but also big ones like Back to the Future, and but modern ones that are huge, like of course Black Panther, rest in peace, Chadwick Boseman. Want someone who, because for that, those not just the movies and the comics and everything inspire me, but the people who play them. I watch a ton of interviews. I'm always on YouTube. I was just watching, ironically, some Starship Troopers clips yesterday, and some interviews with actors who were in it. Nice. Yeah, so Casper Van Dien, when I used to work at Trader Joe's, who plays Johnny Rico in the movie, came into my Trader Joe's in all silk white pajamas, and he's wild, like Jersey, or I think he's from Jersey, wild accent. The guy was hilarious, really fun guy. So it's just when you get to meet and you get to watch and listen to all the people who are behind those roles, it's kind of cool to kind of draw different aspects, both creatively and also just interpersonally. Like, I never thought of it that way. They're in different situations than most of us are on average.
Yeah.
And and also they're playing different people, so they're challenged to discover all these different things. So I draw from as many pieces of sci-fi as possible, whether it's something visual like Back to the Future. I've watched it over 30 times, the whole trilogy, and every single time I watch it, I see something new. There's all these different things, like, or little like errors that were in the movie, or all these little details. Like, in one movie, it's the Twin Pine Mall, and then after a scene where Marty runs over a tree, years later he comes back to his time, it's the Lone Pine Mall. Just on the sign, little details that you wouldn't really notice. So it's drawing from all these different pieces of sci-fi, not just sci-fi, it's fantasy too, but I lean more with sci-fi. My older brother got me into it when I was younger, and anime, sci-fi, video games, all that stuff. Just kept rolling with it. So.
Nice. Well, yeah, we definitely, I think we could totally have a high vibe zone on all three of those things, because those are definitely in my bucket as well.
Oh yeah. Yeah. We'll make a movie list, and we got to make a sci-fi list or something.
Yes, and then a song list. So when you talked about like some of these movies, Neverending Story came to my mind as like one of my, and that whole, I watched that, you said 30 times for, Back to the Future. That I probably watched it like 500 times.
Right.
It's been
that hyperbole is kind of probably closer to mine, but I didn't want to go too crazy.
Oh, okay, well, it's
that's more accurate to how many times I watched it, but I feel you. Yeah.
And then I wanted to talk to you about Camp Wassel a bit.
About what?
Camp Wassel.
Camp Wassel.
Is that what you call it? Have you been with Maria and Louisa and the around the fire pit? Have you been to that yet?
Is that where they rode out on bikes, I think?
No, it's where they talk around philosophy.
Oh, yes. Okay, I didn't realize that it had an official name. Yeah. Okay.
Oh, yeah, it's official.
Yeah, so I live in the neighborhood, and I think I was walking home from, I think, going to get dinner or something like that, and they're like, yeah, this thing's going on. I was like, oh, cool. Like, I'll stop by. So I came and sat, and they were sitting outside and just talking about, it's kind of the tail end of it, but they were just kind of talking about, just general, like, pondered life questions, and it wasn't overly philosophical, but it was, people were being very grounded. It was a beautiful conversation. So I believe I pseudo took part in one.
Yes, nice. Okay. Well, the next time I'm out there, we'll have to do one, because I know that we missed each other on that time, but it was, it's really, and I find that a very similar thread to what you talked around, just how you capture things and how you go into spaces. I found that the Camp Wassel that Maria and Louisa lead have a lot of that similar vibe, where people are just going in and, like you said, grounded, and there's this conversation. And it seemed to me like the first one that I was a part of, just how much that's needed in our world, to just connect from, not through just a screen or comments or tweets, but just as humans, and talk around, why is this way, or what does this mean to you, or what? And then you start to realize that every different angle is a new perspective in this dimensional sphere of things. And it's really amazing to just hold that space for someone else. And sometimes, when to just listen, and then when to engage. And I found that to be a really interesting parallel between kind of what you do and just the Camp Wassel conversation that I've been a part of.
Yeah. It's I've been fortunate to run into some. I feel like it's pretty quick to realize the people who are open to having these kinds of conversations, who have these challenging conversations. I'm the type of person, I'm like, look, let's just get the data out there. And then, whatever, let's get the questions out there, whatever hard questions, whatever it is, let's just get it out there so we can talk about it as reasonably as possible. Nothing's ever going to be perfect, but, we've at least got to take the chance.
Yeah.
If I can, it's like, look, I want to resolve as much as possible around me, and, with other people, and collaborate as often as possible. But, I definitely feel the value every time I sit down with a group of people, can have a great conversation, even if it doesn't matter if the conversations are good or bad, or something awkward happens or whatever. But I always come home and really sit on it and be like, okay, let me really take that apart. Let me challenge myself a little bit. Let me see how I really feel about this situation.
Mm, I
And then
like
the next time you have a conversation, you go out into the world, you try and take that with you as often as possible. So
That's a great perspective. And to really sit with oneself. There's a quote that I like. It says that man's problems stem from our inability to be in a room alone. I'm paraphrasing. But
mm,
like to be with oneself and to just be alone and have that moment of reflection or how did that sit with me? And this happened, but how do I process that?
mm,
And what's interesting about what you've shared so far is I think that's a big part of inspiration too, is when you're not clouded by all of this other stuff, it flows in a lot easier. Felicia has this saying, they could have stopped at the word free, but we get trapped in the dumb stuff. And
right.
so like it's like, okay, I like to resolve this right now and get this over with. That's not getting trapped in the dumb stuff. So you have a lot more energy able to flow, water to flow to you.
Yeah.
And so when you go into that moment of inspiration, you're not blocked and clouded by all of that stuff. And I love how you brought up therapy earlier. I think that's huge. It's really processing on multiple different levels that maybe someone is like, I'm on one level and they can't get to the next because they don't know how to process that next stage, like a video game almost. It's like you don't know how to get to that next. And therapy can really help move things out of your space to then, because we have everything that we need. We're having, we are spiritual beings having a human experience. We have everything we need.
Exactly.
It's just the more we get clouded with things. And what I also notice about your photos is that they're clear. They're they're just it's like nothing else is clouding them. And like that's it's such a beautiful metaphor for just life. I'm just
I appreciate that. Thank you.
so excited. And then Felicia has this one. We're gonna do one last question and then we're gonna wrap up because I want to get some final words from you on
Sure.
something. Felicia was saying if someone was to walk into a photo gallery, what would stand out for someone to say, that is John, and I forgot how to pronounce your last
Well,
name. Dua.
John, yeah.
Got it. Dua
So
photo.
yeah, what would stand out? Man, especially right now, I would say if you saw a print of something of mine, you you would probably, when you're looking at the photo, you would feel hopefully like you're there, like the
Mhm.
perspective you're actually looking at that thing, or like even if it's something on the ground, like it could be a can on the ground or something, and I'm in New York and I photograph something. I'm trying to get it in a way, most of the time, that I want you to feel like it's realistic, or especially if I'm shooting nature, like if I'm shooting at some photos of Lake Tahoe, where there's not much editing going on. Not to put anything on people who edit their photos heavily or use the actions or whatever, but for me, I try to make it look like as real to life as possible, because it's like you can oversaturate and do everything, and it looks like a great overshot production, and those are beautiful photos. I love those. I love the high dynamic range photos. I love that as an artistic concept. I remember being in Las Vegas and seeing there's the pictures. They have these high dynamic range photos that are layered in these big art galleries, are like $10,000 pieces, where it'll be sunset over a water, and there's a light in between it on these two different layers, three different layers, and there's actual light coming out of the sun.
Mhm.
So it's a photo. So I love seeing that. But for me personally, you would know my style because it's like it almost seems like it's film, but maybe not a film that you have come across before, because most of my work is digital. I still shoot a lot of film, and then typically post process a little bit just for any sort of corrections. But you'll see a lot of the nature. You'll see the scars on people's faces. I don't edit those out. I mean, look, if someone has a bad blemish day, that's one thing. But it's like, look, I know I'm shooting with you. I know what you look like. Like, I want you to show up as yourself, and that's you. You know what I mean? I'm gonna get the wild. If you got a wild strand of hair that went crazy in the photo, I might get that. But I want you to actually be in the photo. I want people to feel like they want to get to know um, who you are, and be at peace with you as a person. I think that's very interesting to feel in a photo, or be at peace with that situation, or just take in whatever it is. I love just sitting and watching waves roll, or the trees sway. And so I want that feeling to feel like I've really captured that in the scene. I think that is, to me, I feel like I have kind of carved my own little way of that, at least from the circles of incredible photographers I've been lucky enough to know. So.
That is awesome. Okay. And I could talk to you all day, and there's probably so much that we could talk
High
about.
vibe.
I would love to have you back in the high vibe zone
Absolutely.
because your perspective and the way that you see things, I sense could really I feel like it can solve, not that we're trying to solve anything, but it has a lot of um correlation with some of these things that we're trying to solve in the world. Just the way that you talk about, even the way that you talked about the can on the ground, to just how you talk about the human, like you just have so much compassion and kindness within you. And again, I'm not by any means saying like you are this perfect human, because I know with any thread of learning compassion, there is a balance of the other side that you had to go through and things. There's a whole nother, we are both light and dark in those ways, but
Oh
the
yeah.
way that you express is such a is really cool. And I'd love to continue having a conversation around a topic. Maybe bring Maria and Melissa in here and we can just all vibe out on a conversation. For everyone that has listened, will listen, listening, what would you say is possibly your, you know, in this moment, your best words of wisdom in terms of how you see the world, or what you would share with someone who is trying to get a different perspective or lens on life?
I would say, look to who you are. Look as deep and as far back as you need to. Look at the winds of your who you are, your history. Not just your history, your family history, whatever it is. Like find things to be proud about and that are positive, and push towards. For me personally, again, I'm a Shanti tribe, and I take pride in, we have, our empire has been around for over 1,000 years, really, even off the records, more than that. So it's like looking at what my family had a hand in specifically, and going to a museum and seeing my name on a plaque, in a museum of my ancestors of, hundreds of years ago, and seeing what we accomplished. And our family helped stop the civil war in Ghana when the tribes were trying to unite, and within the Ashanti people. Like, just looking at that for inspiration, drawing on that, that's huge. I know not everybody has, they might not know, we might not be fortunate enough to know their histories from hundreds of years back or whatever, but just drawing on the experiences, drawing on the things they've seen around them that have made them feel positive, even if it's just a photo or when they're on a drive or a song or whatever, really drawing on those things for inspiration. That's me. I would also say, take your time to be creative. You'll know your moments when they're there. As my mother says, you should be ready so you don't have to get ready. But once, another thing she says is, once you make a decision, the stress goes away. So if you want to, it's a heavy one. Once you decide what you want to do, you're like, look, I want to be a photographer. I want to chase this, whatever it is, even if it's not artist related. You chase that thing, you go and do the homework. We have the internet now. Everything's on the internet. We're in the YouTube era. You can see everything online, and, you can collaborate with people in such great ways now. Like, take the time to study. If you think you need to study, get inspired. Don't be afraid to borrow and to practice, things that have inspired you. Draw your favorite comic book, try to do the best, whatever it is. If you're trying to get into that, and just take your time with it. I haven't pushed heavy on a photography project for a few years, even like a year before COVID, I would say. I have all sorts of projects, and even, there's novels. My best work it will be novels for sure, and photo books for sure, that are yet to be published. But I think I'm just taking the time. I'll know when it's right. Don't rush. Try and push on a little bit. Make sure, push on it. Give it a little bit of gas every now and again. But it's okay to just let it cruise for a minute. sometimes you got to go take care of the other stuff in life and focus and meditate in whatever way, whether it's therapy or to go taking a vacation, or if you're writing or spending time with family, friends, loved one, whatever it is. Find that inspiration, however slowly it may come, and just roll with it. Don't stop. Don't ever stop, but take your time. So those are things I would say to remember.
And that's why we got the mic drop, because that was fire. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.
This is fun.
This is very fun. I've enjoyed you as a guest and getting to know you more as a human. And so we're going to close out in a second. Don't go anywhere. Just stay here. Like, don't click out anything. I'll put you backstage. But I want to thank everyone that has watched, that's hung out with us in the High Vibe Zone, that's dropped a comment, question. Just thank you so much for sharing space with us today. My guest is super amazing. You can connect with him on LinkedIn. You can also check him out on his website. I'm going to throw that up in a second.
Yes, and at some point this year, I will be back on my photo Instagram more often. That's just Do a Photo, DUAH photo. Ping me there, ask questions, whatever you need. I'll help point you in the right direction wherever I can. So
awesome. Thank you so much for being here with me in the High Vibe Zone. We're going to kick it out with our super sick intro outro. John, don't go nowhere. Thank you so much, everyone. Have a great rest of your week.
Thanks, y'all.
Your spiritual being in physical form, a dichotomy of light and dark, where energy equals mass on a journey designed to fulfill our personal legend and purpose, to use humanity throughout, to amplify and transcend, tame the ego, raise the humanity. That's a signpost up ahead. Your next stop, the High Vibe Zone.